Hello cadets, and welcome to this quick start on Linux. Now before we get going, it's worth mentioning, this isn't going to be a memory test. This isn't going to be something where we try and learn every single command off by heart and how every command works on a very deep level. It's going to be learning about the flow of working in Linux, and more importantly, how to learn. Now, this is going to be pretty quick, so if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a little bit of piece of bonus material that's going to help you even more. So, you might find yourself staring at an abyss like this. The first thing we need to do is switch the lights on with ls. Now firstly, what is even ls and what have I done here? Let's learn our second command, man, to find that out. Now man is the system manual, and you'll have it at your disposal in pretty much every Linux distribution, so it's something you can count on using to learn about commands. So ls stands for list directory contents. It lists information about the files, and it sorts them alphabetically if none of these parameters here are specified. What is a parameter? A parameter are these down here. It has a short and a long form, and generally what they do is they change the way a command works. In this case, we do not ignore entries starting with a dot. Let's get an example of that. We have our output from ls above here. If we add a -a to that, you can see we get a lot of files that start with a dot now. These are hidden files, at least they were just a moment ago. Now, before this, I looked up another parameter called -l. And this -l parameter changes it again. It gives me a long listed format. L for long. And here you can see it gives me information about the directory, where this is a file, there's some permissions here, who owns this file, the group that owns this file, the file size, the timestamp this was created, as well as the name of the file. And if we add to this even more, we put a -r for reverse. It does in fact reverse the output of this in our terminal. So, before we get started on our next command, I'm going to give you a quick tip. Use Control and L to send the text back up the screen. This is a shortcut for clearing the screen. So now, before we move on to that next command, let's actually go into more depth of what man is. So we'll open up the man for man. Yes, man even has its own man. So man is an interface to the system's reference manuals. It's the system's manual pager, and each page argument you give to it is normally the name of a program, utility, or function. It will then get the manual page associated with each of these arguments, and then we'll find it and it will display it to you. And I'll do this using a utility called less. What is less? Less is what's giving us this ability. But let's go over this in more detail. Let's go back into our manual for ls and put some stuff into practice. So now, if you'll see right off the bat here, we have this little white bar. It says press 8 for help. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll see it gives us pretty much a rundown of how this works anyways. There's moving, there's searching, and right here there's jumping, and there's a bunch more. But we'll just go over moving, searching, and jumping. This is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to press Q to get back. So now, to move around, first of all, we can just use the arrow keys. Used to moving around with the arrow keys, you can use those. Down and up as usual. You can go down line by line using the Enter key. Now you can also use the spacebar to go down page by page. And since this is a pager, you can also use page up and page down. You can use GG, this is a jump, to get to the top of the manual, and Shift G to get to the very end. So now let's jump again and use GG, because now we're going to learn about searching. Searching is going to help you find the information you need super quick. So let's test this out by using a // / is to search forward. Now, if we think about our use of ls and we'd like to organize things by time, or the date they were created, we could search for the word time. And you'll see these highlighted results come up. Now we can cycle through these results using the N key, N for next. And if we look with a keen eye, we'll look and see that we have indeed found what we're looking for. Sort by time, newest first. So now, what if I kept using the N key to cycle through these results, and my result went right off the screen and I ended up at the end of the manual? I could just add shift to my command and use capital N to cycle backwards through this until I get my result back. So now think about that. I cycled forwards and I can also cycle backwards. So I can search forwards, I can search backwards. So now look at this dash dash time parameter and let's go to the end of the manual. I'm at the end of the manual and I'm going to search forwards. I'm going to look for dash dash time, which we just saw in the manual now. And it's saying the pattern is not found. We know for a fact that is in the manual. The only problem is I'm searching in the wrong direction. Let me add a shift to my forward slash and use a question mark and search for dash dash time. And we get our results up here. And the same thing applies except we're going backwards. N to cycle backwards through this document, or go forwards since we're searching backwards with shift N. But just think about the direction that you're going. That's enough to help you get the information that you need for every command that you're going to learn. Let's move on to our next command, cd. I just ran cd. What did I even do? Let's go into the manual for cd. Now, right off the bat, you'll see this is a pretty short manual. This isn't a very complicated command. So this isn't going to be a lesson on cd. cd just changes the directory. This will be a lesson on the Linux file system. So now, let's use tree, and we won't go into the manual for tree because this isn't about tree. We're just going to use tree here to show what the Linux file system looks like. And we're going to put it into less, which we've learned about before. So you'll see right here, we have the root of the file system. And underneath it, there's a bunch of subfolders. These are organized in a hierarchy being like a pyramid. Something at the top, a whole bunch of stuff underneath it. But we'll use the analogy of a staircase here. So now, let's add on to this, and we're going to look for our home directory. In my case, that's home crispy. And I'm going to search for that, searching forward with the forward slash, like we learned before. And I'm going to go up to our results here. Now, this line here is our root or forward slash. And you can see this almost looks like a staircase. It goes home crispy, and you can think about every stair like a forward slash home forward slash crispy. And that's how we go down the staircase. Let's put that into practice. So I go cd forward slash home forward slash crispy. And I will go into the home crispy directory. And we can confirm that by using pwd. And it outputs home crispy to us. pwd, if we look in the manual, just outputs the current working directory. So now, let's think about what we did here. We went from the root, the top stair of the staircase, and we went forward slash home, forward slash crispy, stepping down the staircase. Now, if we look underneath us, there's another stair underneath us called documents. So now, let's think about how we can get there. We're in home, crispy, and there's documents underneath us. So if we just add on to that, it's forward slash home, forward slash crispy, forward slash documents. So we can go cd forward slash home, forward slash crispy, forward slash documents. And we are indeed in our documents directory. Let's think about that a little bit deeper. I was at the second stair of the staircase, and there was a stair underneath me. I went all the way to the top of the staircase, and I went back down home, crispy, documents. Now, naturally, you wouldn't use a staircase like that. You would just go down one stair. There's no need to go back up the staircase and all the way back down again. So how do we go back down? So now that's where we learn about the relative path. Up until now, I've been using the absolute path. That's everything, the explicit absolute path of how you get to where you need to get to. So let's go back to our terminal here and go back to home crispy. And now let's use the relative path. I'm going to be explicit about this to show you how the Linux file system looks at certain notations. If we use a dot means where we currently are. A forward slash, as we mentioned before, is a directory. So where I currently am, that directory, forward slash, there's a directory underneath it called documents. See, it ends with a forward slash. And I'd like to go there with cd. And lo and behold, we end up in that directory. That's the explicit way of doing it. And I'll show you this by going back into home crispy. We can omit or leave out this dot forward slash. And we can just use cd documents. That helps us get down the stair. So now we learned how to get down a stair, but how do we get back up a stair? We can use cd dot dot. I like to think of dot dot as a double jump. It gets me up one stair. So pwd, we're in home crispy again. And that'll show you how to walk up and down the staircase. That is Linux. So let's put a few things we've learned into practice here. Now let's pretend we're just going around the file system. I hit ls. I see I have my documents directory. I use cd to get into that documents directory. I do ls again. I see there's some files in here. I want to see if there's any hidden files. So I do a -a. I do a long listing with a -l. Like we learned before, I'm adding on to stuff here. And I can see there's a reminder.texture. So I want to see if this is important. So now I want to read the file. So now I go in Google and find out that the command that you use in Linux to read a file is cat. So now what is cat? Now we can also bring up the manual for that. And you can see that cat concatenates files on the standard outputs. What is the standard output? The standard output is what we get out from the computer. We give it input, it gives us output, the standard outputs. What is concatenation? Concatenation is putting one thing after the other. It's just a fancy way of saying that. So let's use that with our reminder.txt file. And you'll see that I need to water my pet turtle. So we can add on to this by reading another file. Let's read the things.md. And you can see we have two separate pieces of text here. But I can combine or concatenate these two and put them one after the other, like we see here. I've prepared something as well that's another good example of how this works. So I'll read these files that are supposed to be in a particular order in a garbled mess. So these don't really mean much. You can sort of see there's something there, but to really see the picture, we need to put them in a specific order. So we're going to go ahead and do that by doing file 1, file 2, file 3. And you can see we have a picture of a fish here. If they're arranged and concatenated one after the other, they actually make something meaningful, this picture. So that brings us to the end of this quick start. I'm trying to keep it quick, but since you've been so good and stayed till the end, as promised, I'm going to teach you about another command that's going to help you get moving even faster. We're going to learn about cheat.sh or cheat sheet. What is cheat sheet? Cheat sheet is a web page. We're going to use another command, curl, to use it. Now let's go into the man for curl. We're not going to go very deep into this. Curl is to transfer URL. All of these are different types of URLs, and there are lots. But we are interested in HTTP and HTTPS. So this is definitely the right tool for us to access a web page. And I like to think of this as me seeing the URL. So we're going to go ahead and use curl to read our web page. So we're going to go and say curl http:// cheat.sh. So now you can see we get the output that we expected, but we can make this even shorter. We can leave out this whole HTTP portion and we can just say cheat.sh, and it's even shorter now. To add on to that, we can even remove this ENA because there's another URL that is even shorter than this that we can use. And you would have seen this because we've printed this web page 3 times now. In red, there's a Start Here section. There's a help and an intro, which will give you more in-depth usage of how cheat.sh works. We're going to go over the basics over the commands that we've just learned and just see what it does from a general perspective. But I encourage you to go and read that. So we're going to add on to our cheat.sh command here. We're going to add ls. And you can see here that we have a bunch of information about how the command works. With comments, you can see the commands that you can run. You could copy and paste this all into a terminal and let it just run. Or you could just run these commands one by one and get an idea of how these things work. At the very end, there's a TLDR, arranged in a way that it won't take up your screen. It'll always be something that you don't have to scroll for. So you can have a bunch of commands that can just get you started right away. So we can do this with any command we've learned. If we can do it with manual, you might learn some interesting things about the manual. We can do it with CD. We can use it with other commands like cat, for example. This one is taking a bit long. So let's try that with CD again. And we can do that with the cat command. And on and on and on and on. I encourage you after this lesson to go ahead and be curious and look for yourself and see what every single command does. So yes, that brings us to the end of this quick start. I hope you found value out of this. If you did, please like. If you really liked it, please subscribe. And as always, stay curious, stay learning, and till we meet again.